Hello, this is Bethany Daly with Gettin' It Pegged, and today I'm going to show you how to make this fabulous drop stitch chunky scarf using a new method. It's not your typical drop stitch. It has a little bit more of a, let's see if I can show you that clearly. Let's get it on the white here so you can see it with the white background. Okay, so the cool thing about this is that the lines here are not crossing. They just go straight up, and it kind of makes a little bit of eyelets here in the center, which is fun. It gives it more of a lacy look along with your drop stitch. And they're surrounded by simple garter, which just makes for a really fun, light and airy scarf that you can make extra long and wrap it around a few times around your neck, or you can go shorter and just have it for a pretty accent piece to whatever wardrobe you'd like. It would be a great, a perfect transition scarf that way into fall, and also a lighter one from winter to spring. So this loom is, the way I've done this is I've used the new Authentic Knitting Board Master Kit to be able to put it in the double knitting configuration. Now you'll say, but this is just a drop stitch scarf. It shouldn't need a double knit, but you'll see when I show you how handy it is to have it in this double knit configuration to be able to get this look with the drop stitch without having the yarns twist like regular drop stitch patterns do. And here is another look. I did an introductory video about this Zippy Master Set. I'll put the link in the bottom description of this video, so you can go there to learn more about this set. But this is where I've gotten the attachments and the loom pieces to be able to make this project for you today. Okay, so, and I also will give you a link just for your information at the bottom of the video that has a link to the post at my website where you can get the full pattern written out for this scarf project. Okay, so we've started out with a regular chain cast on with just one side of the two pegs, peg pairs here, and I cast on from left to right, and I've used all 8 pegs of the loom here. And just a little FYI too, I've marked these, which I didn't really need to. They just kind of live on my loom now. But these are actually little rubber bands that work good for marking your pegs, because sometimes you have a little bit more of a complicated stitch pattern and you really want to keep track of your what to do on what peg. So a stitch or a peg marker is really handy, but these pegs are fatter than will take a regular marker. So these little these little rubber bands that you can find them in craft stores that go with the other little, there's a loom set that is more for weaving, these little bands, and those bands work great as markers on these fat pegs. So just a little tip there for your convenience. Okay, so I've cast on in the very beginning. You just cast on from left to right, and then you're going to do 3 garter stitch rows. Garter stitch is in loom knitting where you're gonna, knit 1 row and then you purl the next row, and that makes 1 garter stitch ridge. So we're gonna do 3 garter stitch ridges, which means that we're actually doing 6 rows. And we're also slip stitching the edges, and that gives you a nice smooth edge on the outside here, so that, and see how it looks like a little pretty chain there on the outside? That's because we've slipped the stitches, and also another little tip to make it happen on both sides like this. If you don't do that, you'll just have garter ridge bumps on the outside, which is pretty too, but for this I just decided that I wanted to have a more cleaner look and slip the stitches. So to do a slip stitch, you're just going to not knit it. So you're going to do that at the first peg of every row. So here is, I've ended my row coming this way, and you can see the working yarn is coming from that last peg from my previous row. So instead of coming around wrapping or knitting this last one, I'm just going to come behind it and not work it at all. So it just sits there. So now I'm going to knit off all of these pegs. Turn it like this, you can see a little better. And you do knit the last row or last peg of every row, so that's normal. So now to come back, again, you bring it behind and just leave this one alone, because that's the first peg of the next row. So just don't knit it. And this is going to be a purl row. So this is where we reach down. Oh, and my knits were U-stitch knits rather than the true knit stitch or E-wrap. It's just generally my preferred knit stitch. Okay, now on the purl rows, when you're wanting to get garter stitch that's even on both sides, the last peg, you want to knit that instead of purling it. And that keeps them all straight and aligned. Otherwise, you'll end up with a little bump on the purl side, so it won't look exactly even on each side. So just remember to knit that last peg. Okay, so now you're going to do this 2 more times. So knit, purl, in the way that I've shown. Skip the first pegs of each of the rows, and on the purl rows, knit the last peg. Okay, so I will see you after you've finished those following 4 rows. Okay, I have done my 4 additional rows, and we're going to proceed with the drop stitch row. So how that is going to happen is we're going to, again, slip the first stitch in the row, and then the second stitch we're actually going to bind off. So we're going to knit it and knit this one next to it, move the loop over, knit off, and then move it over. So we're going to have a hole right here. And now what we're going to do is create our drop stitch on the bind off peg. So I'm going to go in front of it as if I'm going to knit this peg, right? And I'm going to do a true knit stitch here where I reach up, pull the loop down, and instead of lifting this off the peg like normal, I'm going to pull enough of this new loop over to slip on the back of this, the double knitting configuration. So I'm going to use this back row of pegs as a holding peg. So that's going to just stay there for now. And and you don't want to trap your working yarn. There we go. Get that free. And you want to make sure it's tightened up so all of your drop stitches stay even. So it's just like that. Tightness, not too tight, just the same firm, snug feel. Okay, and then we're going to do the same. So we bind off this one. So you knit 2, move the loop over, knit off, and then move this over and create our drop stitch loop. We're going to do the true knit stitch. Just pull it down and flip it over and cinch it in. And once more, I'm going to bind off this one. So we knit these two, move it over, knit off, and move over right here. Okay, now bring it in front, and we're going to make our drop stitch loop. Like this, bring it straight down, flip it over, and then on this last peg, we're going to knit once, and then we're going to E-wrap 2 more times on this same peg. And what that does is make the side, it makes it come up and join the height of these drop stitch loops that we've created here. Okay, and we're going to finish that at the end of this row where we build it up on this peg. Okay, so that's our first row of the drop stitch rows. Now we're going to come back, and remember, everything coming this direction from left to right is going to be purl. So we are going to slip this, and remember that this is part of our knit stitch. So this loop actually should be behind. We're just using it to hold our stitch there in place. But now we're ready to work it. So that can actually be put to the back of the peg, and then you bring this loop back this way, and then for this part I just use my fingers. We're going to purl this big old loop here because it's a purl row. So you bring your working yarn down from underneath and pull up, and then tuck this loop to the inside of the loom and put your new loop on and cinch up like that. Now this is going to be a half hitch cast on. So let's see. For this way, you do it like this. So it looks like your working yarn is on the top. You twist it this way because we're just going to flop it over and put it like that. So actually it turns out our working yarn is coming from the bottom of that twist, which holds it all in place there. See if you can see that. Okay, so we're going to do the same. This is our loop from the previous row, so it just goes back. We're going to purl this, pull the working yarn up through it, push this to the center, and pull snug. And that just gets tucked in. And then half hitch cast on to the empty peg. So turn it, you just twist your fingers like this between your thumb and your pointer, and then twist. And that creates the loop that you want with the working yarn coming from the top. Then you're just going to place it on your peg, and when you flip it like that, it makes it come from the bottom. Okay, so one more time. This gets just put to the center. Bring our holding loop over. We're going to purl it, so pull it up from the bottom and tuck that long loop to the middle. Bring the new loop to the peg and cinch it in. And then pinch and twist and place for our half hitch cast on. And now the final peg is, remember when we're purling rows, we knit this one. So this is going to finish our drop stitch setup rows, and it's going to build up the side. So we knit this and then E-wrap it 2 more times like this. Voila, there we go. Now we've completed the entire row repeat to create this lovely drop stitch scarf. And now you're just going to repeat. If you go back to the beginning of the tape of this video and play it, you'll be able to just keep repeating and repeating until it's time to be done. And then to finish the scarf so that it will match your end, you're just going to repeat your garter stitch rows and then do a basic bind off, and it should match very nicely. And that is how to create this beautiful non-twisty drop stitch with eyelets underneath. It's going to be so stunning when you're all done. It'll just be a great statement piece and look marvelous. Do it in every color you have so you can wear it with all your fall outfits. Okay, well, thanks so much for joining me today, and I'm so looking forward to seeing all of your lovely creations and what kind of yarn you're using and to make this gorgeous stitch. Let me know. Drop me a comment, send me a picture. I'm happy to see them. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Happy looming.